I don't know why, but for some reason these films really get under my skin. Usually films about ghosts or possession don't do anything for me, but these movies somehow got the formula down. First off, you've got the found footage, guerrilla-style filmmaking, which doesn't always work. Some films just don't lend themselves to the genre, but I think why it's so effective here is how the filmmakers take their time to set up the thrills. Yes, it can rely a little too much on jump scares, and as the series went on, it even injected some CGI into the mix as the films delved deeper into their supernatural storylines. A few years ago, I reviewed the first 4 installments, but I figured I'd be a completist and finish off the series. The Marked Ones was released in January 2014, and although it is the 5th installment to the series, it's generally considered a spin-off to the main franchise. That's a little misleading because it has enough ties to the past 4 films to be considered a true sequel. When it comes to horror films, let's face it, the vast majority of sequels have very little in common with each other aside from the recurring villain, and sometimes they can't even get that right. Although each installment in the series features a predominantly different cast, the first 4 films focused on the 2 sisters, Katie and Christy, either as victims of a demon, as little kids, or as one of the antagonists. While this is the first one to not specifically reference those films, it definitely takes place in the same setting, and certain characters from past films make an appearance, such as Allie Ray, the sole survivor from Paranormal Activity 2. Set in a Latin neighborhood, the Marked Ones follows recent high school graduate Jesse and his brother from another mother, Hector. Jesse lives in an apartment above a crazy old woman, Anna, who the boys discovers performing bizarre rituals by spying on her with a GoPro. Later on, after harassing the old lady, Anna is found dead as a fellow classmate, Oscar, runs from the scene of the crime. This is where that whole found footage thing loses a little credibility. In normal films, the ones without the shaky cinematography, the protagonists don't go to the authorities because the things happening around them are too weird, and they often lack the proof. But in these movies, everyone has it all captured on film, and no one goes to the authorities. Now, the last couple of films addressed this when the parents, or in this case the YouTube commenters, blame the supernatural elements on computer software, but you would think the police would have a pretty good handle on what's real and what's fabricated. Once Anna and Oscar are out of the picture, Jesse, Hector, and their lady friend Marisol actually raid Anna's apartment and find a book on demon rituals. Then they go to a church and cast a spell, just for shits and giggles. The next day, Jesse has a strange mark on his arm and he begins to get superpowers. This is the first film where the protagonist gets these kinds of powers, and like Peter Parker and Spider-Man, he starts seeing what kinds of weird things he can do. It's pretty amusing, although again, at this point, it weakens the effect of the found footage aspect. Like usual, the film goes from being just a random series of videos to being pretty disturbing. Jesse starts to get a little insane, and there's even a scene where he makes his dog convulse in the ceiling, like Tina in Nightmare on Elm Street. Jesse starts a fight in a party store, and eventually he pushes his grandmother down a flight of stairs. While further investigating Anna's apartment, Hector notices that she kept pictures of Jesse and his family. Hector and Marisol visit Oscar's gangster brother Arturo and find a bunch of references to the cultists that first appeared in Paranormal Activity 3. They also find the phone number of Allie, Christy's stepdaughter, and give her a call. After Allie sheds some light on what's happening to Jesse, Hector and Marisol find Jesse in an alley and get attacked when Marisol lays him out. Then they get ran by a truck, and this is where it starts to feel more like an action thriller. Jesse gets kidnapped with Hector, Marisol, and Arturo going to track him down. They all end up at the house that was featured at the end of Paranormal Activity 3, and somehow, while escaping from the cultists, Hector ends up back in time at Katie and Mika's home, where we find out that Hector's presence is what triggered the climax of the original film. Weird. At this point, a lot of it feels routine. If you've seen the other 4 films, then you know what to expect, and it doesn't have the clever setup that some of those movies had. There's no Xbox Kinect, no security cameras. They use a GoPro at certain points, but it's never utilized to its full potential. Still, there are some genuinely creepy moments, and some of the jump scares actually got me to jump. How about that? You're either a fan of this series or you aren't, but I'd say if you've been with the franchise this long, you've got nothing to lose.